My name is Ruth Craig. Earlier this year I sailed on the tall ships race on the Lady Beaverbrook. 200 tall ships raced from Cadiz in Spain across to Puerto Rico in the Caribbean, tracing the journey of Christopher Columbus 500 years ago. I was part of a mixed ability crew of 18, some of whom were disabled. I had lots of things to do on this trip. I made a video diary of our journey and met some deaf people in Spain and Puerto Rico to find out what they know about Christopher Columbus. Cadiz was the starting point of the main leg of the tall ships race, but our story starts in London. In fact, it begins on a very different kind of boat trip on the River Thames, where I met my fellow seafarer, Sarah Livermore. We will be your reporters on Sea Here about a fantastic sea adventure from Europe across to the Caribbean up to North America. You'll probably call me your Spanish correspondent because I'll be sailing from Cadiz in Spain across to Puerto Rico in the Caribbean.
I am standing on the flying lake on the journey from Puerto Rico to New York. So I'm going to the river Thames. I'm going up to Puerto Rico to American history and the United Kingdom. I'm going to plan to find out a background of Christopher Columbus and Spencer in 1492. I feel like as this map, it is date about the time that Columbus was sailing. At that time of Columbus, the people then believed that the journey on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. Marco Polo had traveled overland in 1274. That was the east, and so Columbus realized that quicker as England got there, by sailing through the night.
Columbus underestimated the circumference of the world by about 1/5, so the new world that he discovered was in fact America.
These got casual livelihood because I had financial maritime minerals. And this Columbus came to the other side of the world.
We know from Columbus's records what sort of instruments he had. We know he had compasses, very much like this. He probably had a cross staff like this. He probably had a quadrant, and he probably had an astrolabe, something like that. With these three instruments here, he could measure the altitude of the pole star or of the sun, and from that he would know what latitude or which north-south line he was on. And then with the compass, he would know sort of which way that he was going in the middle of this vast expanse. But the real problem is Columbus had no idea of how far east and west he was. And it seems as though basically what he did was sail by his nose, by his intuition, by the fact that he knew how fast he was going. He used to follow birds, for example, and he knew that they would migrate in certain patterns. And another thing he used to do was test the water, for in very, very deep water, seawater is very salty. But then near the coast, where you're getting a lot of influx or exflux from the rivers, the freshwater rivers, it will be less salty. So it's all these sort of intangible things, experience, if you like, that helped Columbus navigate.
Columbus was playing the Queen's game.
If you had the choice of going on a ship and going out into space, as it were, knowing that maybe you had a 1 in 10 chance of returning, But the chance if you did return, you'd come back a very, very rich man and a hero. I think basically what Columbus probably appealed to was their basic sense of greed and hoping that if they thought they would come back heroes, that he'd get a crew, and he was right.
Why is that the bishop so small? Yeah.
My understanding is that any town anywhere in the world that can claim associations with Columbus, even Columbus, Ohio in America, have Columbus shows. And again, that's one of the reasons why we decided not to do it. Some people have asked us, did you decide not to have a Columbus show because of the new historical reinterpretation of Columbus? But I think a better way to consider that is Columbus was a man of his own time. He was very religious. He very much believed in what his country was trying to do. And rather for us in the 20th century to look back and say, oh, he was a bad man for what he did to the Indians, I think it's better to look at him in a contemporary view and say he was either a very, very courageous explorer or he was a very silly navigator.
There's obviously a lot more to the Columbus story than we thought. I expect we'll find out what happened to the Indians when we get to Puerto Rico. Explorers like Columbus have really changed the world, but one thing that hasn't changed much over the last 500 years is the peril of the open sea. I don't know what Columbus knew about the sea survival, but the crews of the Lady Beaverbrook have to be trained to survive shipwreck. Columbus probably learned by trial and error, but we were taught by the Royal Navy on a very cold morning in Portsmouth.
Okay, hold it there. And gently lower it down. Okay, once your outer doorways are closed, so you will keep the worst of the weather out, and you'll start generating some warmth on the inside. The whole of the life raft is in actual fact double insulated. As you can see, it's blue on the inside and orange on the outside. That will stop people throwing up, hopefully. We'll keep it a nice dark colour. In conjunction with your seasickness tablets, it'll make you very drowsy. But that's the best way to survive inside there. If you are going to throw up in a life raft, stick your head down there and let rip. That gets it straight out of the life raft. Because if you throw up on the person next to you, you'll find they come up in sympathy.
Right, you will have 2.5 minutes to get yourselves fully dressed and your life jackets fully inflated.
Awful, really awful. Just, I'm not looking forward to this at all. Not at all. I think I'm going to jump off and stop breathing altogether. Hope I don't die. It's awful.
As you can see, if something does happen in the middle of the Atlantic, I think they'll be more than qualified to cope with it and know what to expect. And secondary reason, get them all together. It's the first time they've been together as a crew, and just to meet each other and have a good time.
This is where my video diary begins. We're sailing out of Lisbon Harbour on the way down to the start of the big race in Cadiz. It's a chance for me to practice using the camera and hopefully get my sea legs. We flew here from London only yesterday, and 12 hours later I'm having my first sight of the tall ships. It will take a few days to get to Cadiz, where I'll meet up with the BBC crew and a group of Spanish deaf people.
It's day one and we've only been on the boat for 4 hours. I've already been sick, and it's really awful. People are saying that the waters are very, very calm, but there's a big swell making me feel really awful.
Stop!
This is the bedroom where there's 4 of us sleeping in here. There's 3 guys and 1 boy.
Boy?
You can see that the bunks are very small and there's not a lot of room. And it's quite squashed in here, really.
So we get to know each other quite quickly.
You come and have a look at the galley. Wow, the kitchen's even smaller than the bedroom, really. It's very difficult to get 2 people in. And each group is 4 people, so you have to share and sort of cook things better as groups.
3 days after leaving Lisbon, the fleet of 200 ships arrived in Cadiz. It's one of the biggest parties Cadiz has ever thrown, and it goes on all week. Also soon it's morning, and we're rigged up with a shower with a hose pipe, and we're having our first wash for 3 days. The BBC crew have arrived, and with them the Spanish deaf people, all set to help me discover the Spanish side of the Columbus story.
Is your name Ruth?
Yes, Ruth.
My name's Eduardo.
Eduardo.
I'm Aurora.
Aurora.
My name's Jose Maria.
Jose Maria. Great.
What have you been doing? Relaxing? Sitting back?
Well, I've been quite busy sort of cleaning and cooking.
It must be hard work cooking for so many people.
Yes, I was cooking and dishing up food about 7:15 this morning. I was cooking breakfast and I was half asleep. There are 200 ships in the docks from all over the world. We're looking for a replica of a 15th century caravel called the Boa Esperanza, which is supposed to look like Columbus's lost flagship, the Santa Maria. At last we've found her and tried to imagine Columbus on board.
It's not an exact copy, it's a replica.
Yes, it's similar.
The Lord Trenchard is a combined Army, Navy and Air Force crew. They are experimenting with replicas of the navigational instruments used by Columbus. A long time ago they would have used an ASTROLABE, astrolabe.
They used to use those things on ships. If they pointed them at the sun, they could plot a course.
They could work out their position on the Earth using that and the sun.
That's right, then they'd know which way to go.
Today, we all use a satellite system to pinpoint our position, and it's really very accurate. It can get you within a short distance of where you want to be. 500 years ago, people used the sun and these old instruments to navigate, and so they never knew exactly where they were. The satellite system is absolutely precise. It can get you within 50 meters of your destination. But the old method could only get you within 50 miles. The area around Cadiz has lots of links with Columbus, so we're off to explore. It takes a while to get the hang of the different way of signing, especially doing it with one hand, but I'm getting there slowly. We're a couple of hours away from Cadiz, here in La Rabida. Here we've got a monastery which has got very strong links with Columbus. We came here with two crew members, Pippa and Phil, and also came out our Spanish guides.
La Rábida is known as the birthplace of America. In 1485, Columbus and his son Diego went to stay in the monastery for 6 months. Columbus had his plans worked out for sailing to China via a western sea route. Persuading people to back him was a problem. It was seen as a bit of a madcap scheme.
Columbus had already been rejected by the Portuguese king, so he had headed for Spain and ended up here at this monastery. Columbus wanted to stay at La Rábida because he thought the friars might educate his own, and he heard that the prior had the ear of the Spanish queen.
The King and Queen of Spain said that they would consider his request. But Columbus had to wait for years because of a war that they were fighting.
Eventually, the King and Queen of Spain agreed to let Columbus go on his journey. Here at St. George's Church, this is the actual place where the announcement of the order was made to tell the people of Palos to provide Columbus with everything he needed.
The Catholic King of Spain orders you, the people of Palos, to provision the ships with food and water for Columbus' journey to China in 1492.
Once we leave, we're going straight to Santa Cruz in Tenerife. Hopefully it should only take about 5 days. With this wind, maybe less. Without it, maybe more. But we'll see what happens. So the main thing for now is to get the boat ready, get your sails ready, get all your gear packed. It's going to be a bit bouncy out there. Ship may start flying around.
Well, they get the springs off.
Everyone's busy getting ready to sail. My final bit of preparation is to take my seasickness tablets. I don't want to be ill again like I was leaving Lisbon. This looks bad enough, but thank goodness we don't have to do this display. It's spectacular to see so many boats sailing together. Days after leaving Cadiz, we have our first sight of land, Mount Teide, the volcano in Tenerife. We stopped briefly at Santa Cruz to pick up supplies. We're heading off into the Atlantic, past the island of Gormira, where Columbus also took on fresh water for his journey. We're spending the afternoon making sail ties and learning different sailing knots. Matt never quite got the hang of making the bowline.
Are you watching this, everybody? Oh!
Of course, Stephen had to show everybody his marvellous knot tricks. And that's a dolphin. Nicky, with one of the many flying fish, was landed on the deck. Day 23. It's 5 days since we left Gormira. The weather's just really hot, but we know it's going to get even hotter as we go along. Today we're making knots. And recently we've seen lots of flying fish and dolphins. They're really beautiful, but it was difficult to film them because they shoot off so quickly. And also, we've had so little sleep, we're all really tired. My back's aching, but still it's good fun.
Here we are, we're 1,000 miles from land, baking our own bread.
We sit for hours watching the scenery. In the day it's lovely, but during the night it's even better. We have these wonderful tropical storms. We are in groups of 4 and we take it in turns to work and relax and sometimes sleep. 4 hours on and 4 off. Each group does the cooking every 3rd day. Some days are better than others.
Aimed about 15 degrees downwind in strong winds. 15 degrees downwind in strong winds. Do not aim them into
It's very calm waters today, and few of us decided to go for a swim in the Atlantic Ocean. People who have already been in say that there's a strong current. It's really lovely to have water all around you and be able to use it at last. It's the 8 till 12 watch. So every morning we tidy up the decks on the boat for about half an hour. Today the winds are very slow and we're travelling about half a mile an hour. It's very slow, so we're changing sails every 5 or 10 minutes. But it's difficult having to change them all the time. We've just finished changing the sail and tied it up. Hopefully the boat will start going a bit quicker now. In case you're wondering, yes, I do have to do some work. I'm really nervous today because I'm going to climb up the mast. I don't know how many feet high it is, but I hope to reach about halfway, but probably not to the top. I'm really scared. This is the chart room. It's where the navigation is done and plots on the chart of where we are. This is a radio, shortwave radio. And this is the log which gives us the speed and distance. And this is our GPS. This is the chart from 12 o'clock today. It shows us where we are in the world. Puerto Rico is where we are aiming for. It'll take about 3 days, but I wish it was nearer.
I'm coming to meet the boat. I'm enjoying a new crew that goes to say from here up to New York. While I'm arranging a handmade up with some Puerto local people and explore some of the islands.
Josefina, Javier and Yanira are students at a deaf school in San Juan. Sarah arranged to meet them before we left London, but met Randy by chance. He was introduced to her at the port where his father works with the US Coast Guards. It's interesting to see how Sarah communicates with the Puerto Ricans. It's just like my experience in Spain. We have to find common signs and gestures so we can talk to each other. But at least it's improving our signing, and it's definitely easier than picking up Spanish in a day. Sarah is in one of the diminishing number of rainforests in the world. It is called El Yunque, and is part of the mountainous tropical forest which covers an area in the east of Puerto Rico. It must have looked so different to Columbus after the dry lands of southern Spain. El Yunque was very important to the original inhabitants of Puerto Rico, who believed that the good and evil spirits lived deep in the forest.
When Columbus arrived here, this rainforest was just as it is now. It gets 100 billion gallons of rain a year.
Columbus first made landfall on the 11th of October 1492, somewhere in the Bahamas. He was convinced that he had finally made it to China, but he was wrong. Columbus marked the occasion with these words:
At dawn, we saw naked people, and I went ashore in the ship's boat, armed, with the captains of the other boats. I unfurled the royal banner for the King of Spain, and the captains brought the flags which displayed a large green cross.
Columbus sent off 2 of his men to find the Emperor of China, and of course, gold. But he didn't find either.
In 1493, Columbus came back to the Caribbean on another voyage, still in search of China, and landed in Puerto Rico. This is how he would have found it, in its natural state.
Columbus planned the day of the island, walking the lines of population and correction in language and culture. But on years later, 2 onion ships appearing down on the cargo window of the Chinese at sea.
Land ahoy! At last, 3 weeks after leaving Tenerife, we can see Puerto Rico. When we arrive at land tonight, the lads want to go for a drink and smoke because they've run out. There's been no cigarettes for the last few days. The lasses, of course, would prefer a freshwater shower to wash and to get rid of all the salt which is drying our skin. Also, it would be great to get rid of the rubbish bags because they're really starting to smell now. But it'd be lovely to be able to walk and get some exercise again. Had to take my hearing aids out. I'd damaged them all. Had 4 hearing aids. And waves kept coming over my ears, and that was it. Oh, you need to bring some spare hearing aids. At one time, I damaged them all but one. I had no balance, and 3 times I nearly fell overboard. Back on the Columbus Trail, we set off exploring San Juan, the capital of Puerto Rico. This land was originally inhabited by the Taino Indians. The first Spanish governor after the arrival of Columbus was called Ponce de Leon. We are meeting up at his old family house called Casablanca, which is now a museum. At last we can find out what happened to the Indians. We've been thinking about it ever since Dr. Lippincott talked about them in Greenwich. The ground floor shows how the Spanish family lived. Upstairs there's a tiny museum. It contains few surviving items from the Taino Indian culture that is no more.
Left of some building of the English model on one of the stations. Numerous citizens and bands left out of many of the English. The Spanish gentlemen left the mark on Puerto Rico. The national land became Spanish, and the Puerto Rican is a one Spanish Rex and thinkers. They had African influence as well. African one enslaved in place the local Indian manifestations.
Sarah asked a guide from the ceremonial park his views on Columbus.
Well, besides that he wasn't a very good navigator and a sailor, I think he commenced the whole genocide of a rich and deep culture that had been here for thousands of years. The discovery, or invasion as I like to call it, was the worst thing that could have happened to the New World and to the Caribbean especially.
But what do the young Puerto Ricans think about the long-term effects of Christopher Columbus?
I think they accept it, really.
You think about these people being captured and taken away from their homes. Lots of people dying. It's very sad, really. People were taken away from their own land. It's terrible. But more than that, I don't know.
But why don't these young Puerto Ricans know more about their past? Their teacher, Adolfo Alguin, tries to explain.
I know of the problem here and other countries sometimes is unforgotten and story. Why? Most of the time the teacher is poor or not having interest or not focusing attention on specific a problem social, economic. Right now, with responsibility and the school is and the focus attention what happened before, because and not again same mistake. If society and the community are learning and teaching, maybe in the future and never again mistake. The focus is study and more deep and story, social, economic, religion, whatever.
If it's true that many Puerto Ricans are not taught much about Christopher Columbus, then it is not surprising that they are happily celebrating the 500-year anniversary of his arrival in Puerto Rico. But of course Puerto Rican people are as they are today because of that moment in history. They are now a multi-ethnic society, a mixture of Indian, Spanish and African people. They are all enjoying the spectacle of the tall ships, and this generation of sailing tourists will all appear similarly unconcerned about the effects of their predecessor. They are not thinking or demonstrating as a group of Taino Indians who have been devastated by the foreign invaders. Tonight we will join a party, but as a result of our travellings we now know that there are two stories to be told. The story of the Taino Indians and the story of the bold navigator who changed the world forever in search of gold and glory.